I am Njabulo, a husband of one and father of two. For years, my identity had been tied to what I do for a living until the year 2020 when everything fell apart. Hashtag COVID-19. Almost 5 years ago, I became a father for the first time, and I thought I was ready. Looking down at my son's chubby cheeks, my heart filled with pure joy and trepidation, seeing my exhausted wife on the bed after a water birth, I vowed to be the best father ever. It turns out, I wasn't entirely ready to be the best father ever. I had not prepared accordingly for the different stages in my life, career, marriage, and parenting. I have since lost my job, and therefore have chosen to be fully focused on what's important to me. I'm doing right by my vow, and I'm hoping to foster a community of fathers that share similar values. Welcome to the Timers Playbook, a podcast series on fatherhood, proudly produced by 1730 Media. Welcome to this week's episode of the Timers Playbook. I have Njabulo Mtshali on this week's episode. I've been trying to get this guy on for a while now. It just so happens that we're just in different parts of the country, right? You are about 2 hours away from Joburg, and we've been trying to set up time so that we can be in the same room. But as life would have it, it has been very difficult. So we decided to record this thing over Zoom to make sure that the conversation actually happens. Welcome to the Timers Playbook, Ninja, for short. So I'll be calling you Ninja throughout, because I'm Njabulo, yes.
Wow. Because
Welcome, brother. How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm well. With things the way they are, I'm better than I should be. So I'm grateful for that. You know, God, I've got to appreciate everything. So I'm good, man.
Okay. Cool, man. Tell me a bit about your family. Just give me a bit of quick background into kids, wife, set up at home, what you guys about, just a little bit of intro into who you guys are as a family.
Basically, so it's me, Njabulo Mtshali, aka Ninja. Hey, now Walanda is Amzugwan. Married to a beautiful woman inside and out, Mtshali. Fantastic woman, great businesswoman, great wife, great mother. Great person in general. And then I have two kids, a daughter, 8-year-old, Lisedi, and I have a son, 5 years old, Ubonga. I have concluded that they are both smarter than me already. I have given into that, and all I'm doing is feeding that for the rest of their lives until I don't have to. Okay. That's us.
So I want to start with the 8-year-old, just the eldest child, and because it's a girl child also. Yes. Just let me know, because it's coming up a lot, right? When they get closer to teenagehood. At what stage would you say she is, like mentally, emotionally, and physically?
I think she's an 8-year-old. Oh, she just turned 9 actually on Monday. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, she just turned 9 on Monday. But she is.
No, hold on. Did you forget her birthday?
She's the size of an 11-year-old. No, I didn't. She got roller skates, and you listen here, bro. Listen, I can't forget her birthday. Trust me. Can't forget my daughter's birthday. She won't let you forget.
Yeah, no.
Number one.
Yeah.
So, man, she's like I was saying, she's 8 years old, but she's the size of an 11-year-old. I keep saying I blame McDonald's. I blame McDonald's food. These kids are just growing big, beyond the norm that we understand. Mentally, she's awesome. She's also a bit older mentally. I listen to the things she says about the conversation she has with kids at school and the things that bother her about the conversations. She's very picky about friends who she spends her time with. She'll come back home and be like, I don't want to spend time with that person anymore. They're not nice. They don't appreciate people. And you're like, how? Okay, cool. So what do you want to do? If she doesn't change, I told her, but if she doesn't change, I'm not going to spend time with her anymore. She's very particular about such things. So I like that about her because those are things that most of us didn't have when we were younger at her age. We always wanted to fit in.
Yeah. Is it something guys were teaching her, or this is just in her? This is innate. It's her DNA.
Yeah. So Yeah, we did also do that because she was, look, growing up, she's 8, but when she was 5, she always had a desire to fit in and chase after kids. And kids, she's very nice. She's a sweet girl. So kids would take advantage, not because they're mean, they're kids, you know. You give, they'll take. You give, they'll take. They don't understand that, you know, you reciprocate in some cases. Some kids do, but so we had to start teaching her with, hey, girl, be careful. You're nice, but don't get abused or manipulated by people because you want to fit in and stuff. And you don't have to fit in everywhere. You're not going to fit in everywhere. And that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Sometimes there's people you fit in with, and sometimes there's people who fit in with you. You'll figure that out as you go. But there's nothing wrong with being alone. That's another thing we've taught. We've taught them both. There's nothing wrong with being alone. It's great to have a social life amongst kids, but we keep saying it, like they would come back home sometimes, either one of them, and say, but Dad, one doesn't want to play with me. And our answer would be uniform with the wife was, okay, so what? Stay home. We didn't kick you out the house. Yeah, but why? It's like, no, you don't have to play with them, and they don't have to. And they got used to it. So now whenever so-and-so was acting up, well, they'll just tell us so-and-so is acting up. I'll see when they get back on track. But and you started hearing that from them now up until this point. So yeah, actually, it's been taught. It's been taught. Yeah.
Okay. And
because it's a nasty world out here.
Yeah.
Our kids don't. Yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah. So I was going to expand on that a bit more. Have you guys consciously approached raising the girl child differently to the boy child?
Differently to the boy child, I think it's differently to how our parents would have raised a girl. Let's put it that way. But not differently from the boy child. We raised them the same, but we put the same confidence and belief and understanding of, like, my daughter knows she's the leader between the two of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my boy knows to support his sister. They're so tight now. He's 5, but that one is more dangerous. He's hectic. But you know, so these guys, so they get along. That's what we're loving. We also wanted to create an environment where they get along. Usisi used to struggle with indaba yokuthi ubutomncane would get more attention, you know, because he's 3 years younger. So when she was 5, he was 2. So things were cute when he does them. So she started doing things that he does so that she can get the same attention that he does. And those are the things where we had to say to her, no, baby girl, it's just that he's a baby. Yeah, but even though it's rough, it's hard to understand. She's 5, you know. But over time, she started growing into her own space and started owning it and letting him be him, you know, and making her realize, but you realize how much this guy loves you. He's crazy about you, you know, and you don't have to be mean to him. And she started growing into the big sister role, and she's moving with it. So in raising her, the only thing we've done different is not putting her in a place of, you need to sit in that corner. You mustn't do this. You don't go there. You know what I mean? We're exposing her to the same things that we would expose to an elder son. You know, even like she's got a business mind. So she wants to get into business. She said it because mom and dad is what mom and dad do. And we've encouraged it and said, okay, cool. And I remember when we still had the coffee shop, she wanted to be part of it. And like later on, she will run it and take over, you know, just kid talking. But she's got that. And we were saying, okay, it's cool. It's not like, no, you must wait for your brother. Your brother is the boy. No. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So now I guess then, so in gender roles, right? So you're saying that you guys have not shied away, but you've just raised them just as human beings, right? Because you're saying like how we were raised, it was very specific gender roles. Like Mvana, Ula, the girl is there. Even though they would say confidently, you can be whatever you wanted to be, blah, blah, blah. But I have one sister.
But you can be what you want to be as a girl.
Yeah, that's it. You know, I have one sister, three brothers, and the sister was raised like a girl in the sense that she can't really be out, like we were. The freedoms were less, you know. So one parting, you know what I mean? And It's I guess that was the time. But funny enough, in terms of work, she's outperformed all of us, right? In spite of all. Yeah, no, she's the most successful of all the siblings. You know?
Wow. Yeah.
But I guess that could also be a driver, right? Because you could grow up in an environment where you're not really given the chance to thrive and to take ownership of stuff. Then you're like, okay, cool. When I get my job or whatever, I'm going to show them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
What is your relationship like with her? Like as a daughter and a dad? Like, do you guys hang out? You talk to her specifically because, like you're saying, the world is crazy, né? And is it at that age where you start having those conversations with her, or kusase egg?
Well, the thing is now, there is no such thing as Sase early now, because the kids at her school, no matter what I try to cover her from, are exposed to things that I'm trying to cover her from. So she's going to run into those conversations at school. Already, Nabafana, there's this boy at school, Daddy, he was telling me he likes he likes me, you know, all those things.
At 8.
Boys, kids have cell phones, you know.
Yeah.
They show videos, you know. So if you're not gonna be able to have that conversation when she asks, or not willing to have that conversation, the thing is, if I'm not informing my child, someone else is. There's no void. The big mistake we make, we think that because I'm not saying something, then she's not getting there. There's something is informing her, whether it's television, whether it's the kind of, even the cartoons today have different information. And so you've got to take the step forward and speak first, you know, and guide. Obviously, you can't really dictate, but at this moment, I'm the dad. So I am going to guide her as best as I can. So you got to have those conversations now. You get questions that come up that you're going, okay. Like, I mean, the other day she comes up and she was talking about a boy at school. And there's a boy at school, Daddy, he's gay. He's gay. And, you know, so these things are there. And you've got to talk to kids. And no, people are different. You know, people are, you know, so it's all those conversations that come up. There is no, I think that question or statement of is too early. If you still think that as a parent this day and age, you're going to find yourself in problems. Yeah. Not because I'm some sort of wise wizard or what have you. It's what it is. It is what it is.
And how much of a gap are you guys filling, right? In terms of education, about life specifically. So things like that, where now they're starting to talk about, I guess, sexuality, gender roles, all these things. Do schools teach these things, talk about these things, or when it comes to that, it's entirely or mostly up to the parents to educate them?
It's more up to us now. Well, it depends on the school that you're in, but still.
Yeah, I'm saying like your
that
kid.
My daughter's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the school that my daughter's in, and I'm going to put it in a way that makes it simpler. It's a public school, right? So a lot of the time, the school is actually overwhelmed in numbers. So there's no real time to deal with kids and, you know, just really sit with them and explain things. So even if there are these classes, subjects, about social studies or what have you, they don't get into it. So they will deal with the subject from the surface, 1, 2, 3. But you've got 40 kids in the class, you know, they're young, you know, so we've got to now at home fill those gaps. We've got to get into those conversations. I mean, I was saying to my wife the last time I gave her a call, and I was frustrated with schools, right? Because there's a certain picture you have in your head of the sort of person you want your child to become. And you keep finding flaws in schools, whether it's a private school, whether it's a public school, right? And I realized that actually there's nothing really much the schools can do, because every parent has a picture, unless you want them to follow the route that is set out. Every parent has a picture of how they want their child to become. And the only way to have that outcome, and not become as in make every decision for them, but character-wise, ethics, you know, thought process, engaging situations, you know, having discussions. You find yourself in a place where you're frustrated with the schooling system. And meanwhile, the schooling system can only go so far. So then it's you, bro. It's you.
Yeah, and you
What
can't.
you want to get out of the kid, you've got to
Yeah, and
throw in
you
there.
can't leave it to the school, man. I asked this, and I'm glad you brought up the difference. Private, government. Like I engage with young people from private schools, and it's the same frustrations you have. Because in my head, I assumed because it's a private school, these other additional things like we're talking about now, critical thinking, spirituality, higher level type conversations, even age appropriate, would be had, right? Because now they don't have the issue of overcrowding of resources. There is none of that problem. Now they can focus on the kid, on the individual themselves, but the approach is the same.
Yes.
And that's where then parenting really comes in. It's irrespective where the kid goes to school. You have a responsibility nonetheless. So you're a man of faith, ne?
Yeah, my man.
How have you weaved that in with the kids? Like, what do you explain to them about faith? How do you guys practice it? I'm very curious because you're a man of faith, and you say obviously then the family practices what the father does, right? And the parents. But I just want to know, like, how do you guys approach it?
I think one day at a time. I think one of the things we've learned from watching other kids who grew up in the faith before us, right? Before we met Jesus Christ, or whatever form you can call it, is that they were pounded with it, right?
Okay.
And it was something they had to do and had to be. So for us, we try our best to just live it in the home. You know what I mean? And when they have questions, we answer the questions. Because if something is the truth to you, you'll be able to stand for it and speak on it and let your child receive it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And work through it. I'm expecting days where my child is 15 and they're questioning stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm going to teach the Jesus that I know. You know what I mean? The testimony that I have of him from my life, but the worst mistake I could make is, hey, we don't do anything else here. And what? When they ask about Buddhism, when they ask about Islam, whatever, I teach. And I don't say it's evil. I don't say that. I say, no, here's what we understand. And here's what we say.
Okay.
Because once you start doing a us and them thing, you lose the kids, not even to that or to whatever else you're talking about. You just lose them. Any discussion that you have in that manner with anyone, even if it's Christianity, it never goes well. So all you got to do is live what you proclaim and let them ask questions and guide them in the questions that they have. I mean, now at night we pray together. And they've asked us to extend the prayers, so we've started doing, like now we started with the Lord's Prayer, and we moved into the blessing prayer. It's, may the Lord bless you and keep you, the Lord shine his face upon you, all that stuff. And then now they've asked us to do the Lord is my shepherd,
Okay.
And they're the ones asking.
Oh, no, so
right?
they're taking charge of it.
They're asking questions.
Yeah. Now I'm saying now they are being proactive around that.
Exactly, right?
Oh, wow.
But we've also got to realize that right now we're in a bubble, right? We're all there exposed to up until the point of maybe 10, 11, where they start seeing more things and meeting. Now they're going to now start seeing other things and other religions and other lifestyles and other questions they're going to be asked and other kids are going to be throwing because, all that stuff's going to be happening. And now my job as a parent is to be ready for that as best as I can. So I can reply, not to fight it, not to war against it, but to stand for what I believe and say, this is what I know, this is what I'm teaching you, and this is how it works. And then for them, because wisdom is proven by its fruit. There's a term that says that. So if what I'm saying is true and what I'm saying is right, it will come out to be right along their lives. It'll bear fruit in their lives. That's it. And I think that's the place my wife and I have gotten to, bro. Because the whole bombarding thing, it's never worked for pastors' kids. It hasn't worked for anyone. Even in the Islamic side, kids who grew up under that, they fall away because it has to be a choice. The kid needs to pick it at some point in their life. They need to say, I want to go back to what my dad taught me. I want to be that or want to do this in the end, because then it'll last. It will be theirs and they'll continue with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the chances
That's where
are,
we're at with it.
yeah, there's a good chance that they, whatever you teach them, even if bayabaleka kuyo, yabo, at some point they'll revert back to it, because what you learn, especially like you're saying, if the foundation is solid, we always revert back to that. And I do agree with you also. With me, I was just told to go to church. I was expected to just go, and there was no questions being answered until one day when I was of age. I told umamfundisi and umfundisi that I don't want to do this anymore. And then there was a big meeting, my grand heartbroken, tanako gunzagalani, but it was just one of those things where you're just forcing me to do something, and I'm giving up my Sundays. And once you're heavy in the church, there's other things too, right? That happens during the week. So you're giving up your time, and you're young, and you don't know why, and no one bothers to explain to you. And now you become that kid. Now you're the rebel. And I was not even being rebellious. I was like, unless I know why I'm doing this, I'm not doing it anymore.
There's a thing we miss with whether it's religion or, for me, I always use the same principles across, right? I don't know if you've seen a lot of these movies or these places where there's like a culture of, my daughter goes from this high school to this varsity to this kind of business. And you watch that storyline, and then when the kid is coming out of varsity or coming out of high school, he doesn't want to go there, and they get fought, And we do the same thing with faith. Now, sikwenza so yithi laba, and then mawusuka la uzongena la, mawusuka, and when you don't choose that, it's war. And instead of teaching, good to know, this is what we've been doing, and this is why we've been doing it. It's a lesson I've been learning a lot with my son. Ubonga, you deal differently with Ubonga than you do with Ulise. Ulise, the uzwa maumkuza, like mokteta, like I, but you have Ulise the mode, hey, sugala, she would hear, you know what I mean? And she would listen. Ubonga mode, hey, sugala. The response is very different. But if I talk to my son at 5 years old, if Bonga and I have a conversation, don't know why wins this all. And he's like, but I thought, no. His response is positive.
Yeah.
But if I shout at him, they are two different people. So in the same way with life in general and how we expect kids to be raised, like with you and our parents were never taught this. Look, I don't blame my parents, because I've come to a place of understanding. They didn't have these skills. They didn't have the information. They don't have these conversations. It was literally each to his own. Figure it out, kuforum yako, And your parents were doing what they thought was the best way for their child to grow. And when the best way didn't seem to be working, all hell broke loose. When Tsepo was like, I'm so fool. Hi.
Give me a bit of context in the initial understanding of who your father was as a man and a person in general.
I thought my dad was mean, man. I thought my dad was cold, and this guy didn't care about us. Because and he was, was just not interested, and he was always working. And there's guys who are focused on work. My dad was just rough, man. I remember one moment I remember most. I was trying to help them in canopy, your van. They were packing stock, and I'm busy trying to help him with the rope. And he felt that I was taking too long. I was like 7 years old, and I don't know what had upset him. And akasakhumbula kwenzakalani ngezwe nje sekhala impama basha yabona impama kaBud Spencer mfana ngokhala indlebe baba.
If you know, you know.
And I was like, this guy, I was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I remember when he was sick. My dad was sick for most of my life because he died when I was 9. So for 6 years he was on dialysis. And I remember going to the hospital the one time. And I said, why are we going to go see him, to my mother? And she's like, he's your father. I was like, I hate him, Wow. I don't know why he's like this, And my mother was so cool because he was also a bit harsh with her, And she was so cool. She's like, but he's your dad. she would defend him and be like, no, but he's your dad. You must go see him. And we'd go to the hospital and see him. So over time, you grow up. He passes away at 9. And over time, you grow up and you learn more about this guy. You talk to a few people here and there, talk to an uncle in Natal. You talk to your mother, starts talking about certain things. How? Okay. So one of the things I learned was my dad had to leave school at 3 years old, at standard or grade 3, and figure his way out because he grew up amongst a family of 7 kids. He was the middle child, and he was given away to an aunt who couldn't have kids in Natal.
Yeah.
And that's where the bitterness started.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I know that story, right? It's a familiar story,
yeah.
Right? Especially during that time. Moving around, people were also displaced.
Exactly. So auntie was out of his, and the younger lady could not. She was having children, and my aunt could not, or my father's aunt, my grand aunt, couldn't have kids. So my grandmother gave my father away, and he grew up harshly that side. To the point where whenever my mother would buy me stuff, he would be on some, hey, why uthenga lo mfana icathulo? Mina bengihamba ngama-underband nama-shirt, mina mangikhula. Why lokhu simthengela lezi zinto? Yamspoila lo mfana. And these people had worked hard. They'd done well for themselves to be able to get us stuff. But I was like, but why does this guy hate me? I used to think this guy hates me. Gandhi, he just couldn't deal with emotions. He had never had a space or a place to deal with them. So then that's where, when I say I started to respect him, I started to understand with this guy actually never stood a chance. Everything was against him.
Yeah. So he passed away.
His whole life, there are a lot of stuff that happened.
Yeah, you're still quite young, you know? And then I guess so give me like a time period. So from 9 years old, he passes away, and you obviously carry this, because I went through the same thing, right? You carry whatever resentment or hate or misunderstanding you have about your father. How long do you run this for?
Yeah.
And when does the change happen? Like, do you have an actual conversation with your mom where you're like, oh, wow, light bulb moment, or, or is it over time, then gradually you start seeing him differently?
So it's over time, right? From that time of 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm not interested. My dad has passed away. Okay, I'm a kid without a dad. My mother's working her butt off because we were also left in a lot of debt. So she's just working. My mother would leave home at 5 and be back at like 9 at night, She was pushing just to pay off all that was left. Mina ngiyazikhulela ngiwani nje Njabulo. That's where I met Abo Vuyani, I met Abo Mpumi. That's how they became so close. Abo Tessa, your wife, we became close because they became my cousins and my family, Whenever they'd have family gatherings, Abo Vuyani mabaye baba Tony, their parents are like, Asambe, let's go. Talk to your mother, we're taking you with us, Because there was no room for that growing up.
Did your parents know each other, by the way? Or was it just because you're in the same neighborhood? Or was it the parents that knew each other? Like my wife?
No, it's the kids. The kids knew each other.
The kids? You guys just connected?
Yeah, so we connected like playing soccer in the park, La Payana, and then who was it first? So it was Utemba, it was myself initially, and then Gaba Vuyani, and then Gweza Abo Takatso, Abo Zweli. I don't think you've ever met Abo Zweli. You never met Abo Zweli. And then Gweza Botesa. And we just became a whole crew in the neighborhood. We just became a crew and we became family, man. So I'm growing up in that environment, and one of the questions you asked, Uguti, how did I prepare for family, or what made me decide that I wanted to have a family, is because I grew up around families. Even though my family was not intact, I lived in a space where family was a culture. It was what people were married, people were having kids, and they were raising them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I knew a man does. A man raises a family. You work and you raise a family. That's how I understood life to be, and it should be. And that's why I am where I am. Okay. So then I go through that period, 18, 19. A lot of the stories start becoming clearer. You start hearing how they started out in business with my mother, when they were still building Sasol 1 and Sasol 2, Sekunda Nase Sasolberg. And they would travel fortnightly to go sell from the boot of their car, sell like items like clothes. So they'd stock up in Joburg, then travel out there on the fortnight weekend, Esekunda, and sell from the boot of their car, and then come back, batting life fish and chips. Then the next fortnight, they would go back by Sasselberg to the other fortnight, corner, because they would cycle. And that's how they started. They would do that. They would travel. They went and had businesses in Natal. And so when my mother started telling me these stories, I'm like, this guy used to sign checks with an X. He didn't know how to read and write, but he owned a Mercedes Benz. No BEE, nothing. Brand new. And I'm like, what the heck? So I started learning more about him. Like, this guy was a hard worker and he was smart, And then you start learning about his background, his upbringing. You're like, oh, my guy was broken. And I remember during a time of prayer, it hit. And I let him go. I was very bitter with him, but I let him go that night. I was like, Lord, I didn't know. And literally I did a Jesus on some, forgive him, Father, for he knew not what he was doing. I literally said that. I said,
you have to.
I did it, dog.
It's for your own
but
sanity.
But I
right?
said, the guy didn't know. What else could he do? He worked with the tools he had. You know what I mean? And some things worked and some things didn't. And that was it. And I let him go there. I think I was probably 21, 22, 21 and 24. I'm not sure exactly. That's when I just started more admiring my dad and appreciating him and stuff. Man. And and that's pretty much where it started.
It's the full measure of the man, right? So when you think about it and you're starting to learn a bit more, we tend to have this perspective in life of one thing. So if one person does one thing, and especially if they're wrong, then that's all they are. But the same person can be an amazing business person and be a horrible father, or a great father and an absolutely horrible business person. That is exactly the same person. So now when you're older, now you're saying you started to admire your father. Like, what did you admire? Like his traits or his overcoming of struggle?
His persistence, his ability to think through things. Because when you look at the way, he had 5 properties. I'm going, back in those days. This is from the 80s. How do you get that going in that time, as a black man? So things like that. And one of the things that I wanted to just add to what you just said was, was that, who wants to be mean? We never think who actually wants to be a mean person and be mean. Because if we started asking ourselves questions like that, we'd step back and say, okay, so then what would cause a person to be mean? We don't want to go down that route, because finding out the cause means you begin to understand the person. Understanding the person for us starts feeling like we're condoning their behavior. It's not condoning, but it's recognizing the source, and that can also help you in your own life.
But it also forces you. It also forces you to let go of your own anger, right? Because remember the thing,
and we don't want to let go.
Yeah, when you get used to something and you start living in that state, your body, your mind, everything gets used to it. And now suddenly you're saying that, okay, I have to look at this differently. And if I let go of that anger, what else do I have? Because physically, emotionally, you are used to it. You want to hold on to it. This is why it's partizan for such a long time. And when you start going deeper into something and looking objectively at it, and that's hard to say, okay, let me look objectively at my father. Like if I were to separate that this was my father and just look at ukhulele kuphi, kanjani, why? And this could potentially lead to this thing of how he treated me and my mother. And those are then just events. How I feel about them, now that's a different perspective. That's dangerous, Chief. And it also don't want to go down there.
No, because it also takes away excuses for my failures.
100%.
Remember?
Yes.
Remember. So now I have no reason now. So if I understand what happened, I can't blame how I was raised anymore. That's gone now. That's gone. And then people want something to hold on to say, no, but mina ngikhuleka so. Indabe ekhaya, yabona? So that all ended and I had to be me without that without that blame or without that chip on the shoulder.
Yeah, you have to be you in spite of your father, whether he was there or not.
Yeah.
You are your own person.
Yeah.
Cool, brother.
Yeah.
I want to get into the legacy bit, right? Tips and tools that you sent me so nicely. Thank you so much for writing them out so comprehensively. You say that the first thing is you don't really know you're ready till you do it. Everything else is simulation. Or what do you mean by that?
Well, look, you can run through something all you want in your head. You can plan all you want. I mean, there's so many people who have business concepts and people sitting on their desk at their work, on their desktop, right there in front of them in a Word document.
I know.
But until they act on it, and they were talking about people who have MBAs, we're talking about people who are accountants, people who have been trained in all sorts of aspects of business or what have you. But the thing about it is that they are in an environment where there's a set system that provides guidance and sets limitations and policies, right? When you have to get out and do something on your own, you have to create that environment now from scratch. There's no guaranteed check. So in the same thing with raising kids, I can watch Vianney's dad. I can watch anyone's dad raise their kids. It's great. And hope that I'm ready because of what I've learned. And then my kid comes out and he's got a deformity. You know what I mean? Or he comes out, he's got some sort of disability. Yeah? What now? So, or beside that, he's your kid. Yeah. And, watching Vianney's dad raise V, I don't get to see him raise him 24 hours a day or 12 hours a day. You know what I mean? I don't see how Vianney throws tantrums at home. So all that stuff is you can only be as ready as you can be. There's got to come a point where you've got to jump in and you find out how ready you are when you're doing it. It's like engineers, they don't really consider you an engineer with a degree. It's when you start engineering,
that's when
then guys are like, okay, no, your metal is being proven. You are out here doing the things. Fathering is that. You can only start fathering when you're fathering.
When you're a father.
Hey, bro. When you're a father, exactly. When you are raising the kids.
Yeah. No, I know that one 100%. I had things in my head. I had built an image, everything, until these human beings came. Yeah. And let me tell you, for expectant fathers, they are exactly that, human beings, right? As soon as they're born, with emotions, feelings, they start forming their thoughts at a very early age. And most of the time, what you thought you knew is completely incorrect. They will tell you.
And isn't that where our struggle comes in, though?
Yeah.
With parenting, right? So why we end up having parents fight us, kids fight us, is because either you've got to let go and I hope this makes sense, but let the kid raise you or raise your fathering skills according to who they are, right? Or you keep to your picture. And when this kid tries to express themselves as themselves, you keep fighting them back to your picture.
Yes.
And I found with a lot of us is because the picture is not yours anymore, it means you have no control.
Yes.
And you were never supposed to have control. You were supposed to just be a guide.
Because you
were a steward of this.
Exactly.
These kids are not in ours.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We are stewards.
Yes.
We are raising them for their future. And the problem is we raise them for ourselves. Initially, that's what we want to do.
Yes.
I've got this picture. I want them to do this. And bit by bit, either you have to start letting go of those things, or you hold on to that and you will find yourself with a nightmare at 16, at 10. Yeah. Because this person is trying to express themselves as who they are. And what you keep calling rebellion and lack of discipline is just them expressing themselves as who they are. And not even, but because they wouldn't do what you desire. They wouldn't want to go to the varsity you wanted them to go to.
Yeah.
And you'll suffer. You'll suffer.
Yeah. So 100%. It's always our expectations, right? And them not reaching them when they didn't even know, nor did they ask for all of that. Yeah. So I'm also
Yeah.
there, man. Like I said, the kids, they must guide me. And I must just, like you say, you're just a conduit, bro. You're just taking them from one phase to the next. Sooner or later, they don't need you. And our time with them is really limited. And so this is the interesting phase that you've said this before, but I really want you to expand on this. Né? You can only raise or lead or love your kids the way you are bent. What is that? Where does it come from? Please explain.
So bending is something that I that came to me, is that, like, with the relationship with my dad, right? There are things that happen that bent me inside. So let's talk about like your skeleton or the chassis of a car, right? The chassis of the car is the frame that everything sits on, everything's attached to. So the habit with repairing a car that's been in an accident is that everything gets fixed properly except the chassis. If you're a good panel beater, that's what you start with first. You start with the frame, right? You start with that. And a lot of the times we drive on the road and we see that this is a crashed vehicle. When you see this bakkie on the road and it's driving straight, but it's driving sideways. You know what I mean? It's almost like in a constant drift.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And that's how we live our lives, right? So we look fine on the outside, where the panels have been made nice, we've been spray painted, the interior of the car looked good, but the frame is broken. So it comes out when you're raising your kids. Like mina ngikhule ngithethiswa, yabona le nto leyo, even the old lady, because of the struggles of trying to pay back debt and working overtime and working abantu all this time, she became very hard, right? So my son, when he's with his upbringing, we were under pressure financially, right? So what would happen is I would start shouting, and he couldn't make a mistake. Like this is the era for mistakes. Yeah. You know what I mean? This is what he couldn't make a mistake. I would shout at him like he did it on purpose, and he couldn't understand. My son you've met my son, very confident, bright-eyed. He lost that shine for a bit. I almost killed that spark. You know what I'm saying? So when I say you can only lead your kids the way that you are bent, we've got to deal with the bendings, because no matter what happens, when the pressure hits, how you are bent is what will come out. My daughter said the one time, we had a conversation with the lady the one time, and said, sometimes you're mean, Daddy.
You are.
And you think you're such a good person. She's like, Daddy, like straight up, she wasn't even trying to be funny. And we were having a serious conversation, because I was at the place where I was realizing that no, I'm affecting. So we're just having these conversations, because I can't sit down and say, baby, what do you think of Daddy? She can't, because she loves Daddy, and she's also, because at that point she's probably scared of Daddy too. Yeah,
but also that question doesn't make sense.
So now I can throw it in. And then she, out of just the bubbly conversations, like, but sometimes you're mean, Daddy. I'm like, yo. For her, but it hit home, though.
Yeah.
It hit home. And that's the exposure. So I could take that and be offended, or I could take that and say, okay, I need to fix that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I chose to fix it because I remembered, I said, oh, wait, I'm exactly where my father was. That's another thing that hits.
Yeah.
These are the things, now that you are in a corner, you are under pressure, and life's not good, and now COVID, and finances are what, who are you going to become now?
Yeah.
And once again, initially I moved to my bending, but my daughter's like, I had to come back. And we're working on it. I'm working on my son, I'm growing my trust with my son. Bit by bit, there was a point where he'd come and say, Daddy, and I'd be like, yes, what's up? And he's like, never mind. Just by me turning and saying that, I'm not even fighting. I'm not even angry. Yeah. So you realize that so now we're going, so now he comes like, Daddy, did you see Optimus Prime? And he's going on. And now what I do is I'm working, but because I'm working on this project that is my son, I leave the laptop. I know I've got to finish it, but I leave the laptop and he shows me Optimus Prime. And he shows me the stunt for 20 minutes. And then I'm like, my boy, I've got to get back to work. And he's, you know what? He's actually good. He's like, cool.
And he understands that, right? He understands.
Exactly.
Because like you were saying with him, especially, you talk to him, right? And he hears, wow, dude, that's hectic, eh? So you're saying to me, your kids
Yeah.
they knew the signs. With you, I guess she's a time and one touches a move.
Mamela.
Yo, bro.
Our houses are not that big. I mean, yeah. So they have conversations in the middle of the night. They go to bed like 7:45, 7:30, right? So
yeah, and these people don't know how to whisper nyabas. Hey, kids, man.
No, they don't. So there was a time, I remember there was a day when and I'm walking past the passage and I can hear, and the big sister's being big sister, the brother's like, no, but why does he have to be so mean? He doesn't have to shout. He can just tell us. And the sister's like, it's okay. Daddy has a tough day. What the sister's trying to, but the boy is like, no, but he doesn't have to do that, Sadie. No. Yeah, what? And I'm like, yo, and I'm listening to this. Those are the things that triggered me to work on myself, to work on my EQ, and just realize that, you've got to be intentional, bro. It's not
yeah.
We have this thing of, at some point when we are okay financially, when we're okay with the accolades, we will be okay. I mean, we were having a conversation with a lady about Ricky. Ricky's passing triggered a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
And up until one day before, we're having a conversation with this lady, and she's like, Ricky committed suicide. And I said, you know what the problem is that we have an assumption, and I'm not saying this is what Ricky assumed. I'm saying there's people that when we have money, we'll be fine mentally and emotionally too. That's the assumption.
Yes.
And money is an important thing, say ding of it. But even in there, what happens is your mental brokenness or your emotional brokenness gets multiplied.
Yes.
Because the responsibilities are more, and you have access to more things that can hurt you. Then I look at myself and I'm like, Yazin, if I had money in the condition that I was in 6 months to a year ago, I'm fine.
Exactly. What was going to change? Yo, dude,
what I mean?
You've opened my eyes, because I wonder about that too. Like how we actually impact children, right? Because in that moment where now you're just irritated because you have an email to send or you're on a Zoom call, but then you don't even see that you're doing it over time. It's not even like a once-off incident. And I've seen this with my eldest kid. That kid is constantly studying me. He knows, right? Okay. Oh no, daddy, you have some coffee now while I do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. They constantly studying you and trying to figure out how to navigate you so that their lives can just be manageable. But in your case, wow, that's actually quite scary. I'd freak out if I had that conversation. Like my heart would break if I heard that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It does, bro. It does, but it breaks in the right direction. Like the potter, you've got to crush the clay and be remolded, man. That's it.
And you can't wait. You must fix this like now. Like you gotta. If you hear that at night, like tomorrow, you're working on it. It's not like, okay, there's time. There's no time.
I shocked them the next day, just in jail, just like on some who wants to do, and now you're not obviously overcompensating.
Yeah.
But you were just saying, I'm available again, guys. It's me again. The monster is put away. The monster's out, Yeah. And you've got to be intentional. You really have to be, especially at this age. These are seriously formative years.
Yes.
And the way things are moving nowadays, these kids are exposed to so much more now. I think that's the thing. That's a luxury our parents had of time. Or minimal information. Now everything's available to these kids.
Yeah.
I mean, if kids are allowed to have, and I'm not, but kids are allowed to have abortions by themselves at 12. Like a kid can decide, number one, I can have sex with a boy. Then if I find out I'm pregnant, I can go and do it without telling my parents. That's the place where even legally, these kids have just been pushed forward and been pushed forward and been exposed. So it's like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah. So our jobs are immense, man. Cool. Let's get to the next one. You say, teach my kids to be respectful, not submissive. Authority is not oppression.
Yeah.
Why is authority not oppression?
Well, it's two parts, right? That's why I think I have the and in between there. But can I start number one with the disrespecting, Kala?
Yeah.
And then you'll understand where I'm getting to. So there's a kid named Ntaute. I spoke to him like a few years ago, 3, 4 years, 5 years ago. Ntaute had gotten work at F&B. He's been working there for like 2, 3 years. He was studying. I'm not sure whether he got his master's or his one. So he said he was speaking to his boss, right? And this boy is younger than me by like 10 years, right? He says, man. So he spoke to his boss and he's like, boss, I'm pretty much graduated. This is my qualifications. I'm looking at moving forward in life. What are your plans for me in this company, right? And the boss came back to him and said, give me about a month or two. I think I said a month, and I'll come back to you whether, because he said, I'm looking at other prospects. He told him he's looking at other prospects. About a month later, the boss comes back with a package and a plan. This is where we see you going in the company. What. He took it on and he's growing in the company now, right? So the thing about it, though, is that we don't have that as a culture, as a botaki, right? We were taught Mundum Dala doesn't get questioned. Mundum Dala, it's the disrespect to ask about anything. You know what I mean? Don't question anything. And that creates a spirit of submissiveness to anyone and everything. And I believe, this is my belief, that that's affected a lot of Black people, even in their progression career-wise, where ubas or your boss, Black or white, you can't go there and ask for more, right? Because that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
You can't question why you haven't been promoted, because that's disrespectful. It's an underlying culture, We don't realize it, but one of the things I believe is that that's part of the biggest reason why I know there's just the basic racial issues involved, but part of the reason of why Utaki in one post is paid less than Ungamla in the same post is because Ungamla was taught to negotiate Magakula. He was taught to question and discuss it. Hayi mama ke uthi enze so yena uyabuza ukuthi why mina mama mbeka ngifaka impama. But it's training up the ability to question and to negotiate things. When we get into an interview, but it's 18 to 25K, right? But so how much were you looking at? 18 right, they'll give you 18. This is a generalization, obviously, in the space, but we know these stories, right? But now ungamla makafika uzoxoxela ngenkinga zakhe ukuthi he needs to move what ufuna 25 kunegotiate kahle he was targeting maybe 22 or 20 aphume 20, same job, same post. And for me, that's why I'm saying I need to teach my kid to be respectful but not submissive. And how we beat them into submission is how something. My son asks a lot of questions. And I'm like, no, Bonga, no. Hi, I'm not explaining things. And he's just asking about life. He's just asking about how does this work? How does this go? And I'm just, no. And I'm like, go to your room and take that. And he's like, why? I'm saying, no, I need you to take that so that there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know whether it's an ego thing, but hi man, stop questioning me. Just go get it. So I know it can seem very general, but I've realized, and I've worked with people. I've worked with people under me, people above me, who struggle with authority. Who struggle with coming to business. Like, dude, go talk to them. I know, harmful. You know what I mean? But you deserve this thing. We've seen it everywhere, and it's part of that upbringing, and it's just something that we've got to do away with. It's not good our kids must run rampant, but we got to start creating an environment of negotiation. So now with authority is not oppression. Actually, don't remember why I wrote. Oh yes, I do remember why I wrote that. With authority is not oppression, right? It's what also happens, right, is in our upbringing as abotaki, ubas begumlungu, right? So whenever umlungu akhuza emsebenzini back then, it would be as though they were oppressing you. Meanwhile, ezinye izinto bekuyispani, ulovile espanini, wafika wena Tuesday, on Tuesday noma ufika ngebhalazo kuyakuthela ngescrap. Lo mlungu lona uyas-oppressa wenza njani. Now we've got black bosses, right? You go to work and you still say the same thing.
Yeah.
Leni zenza umlungu le. And why? Because you're being reprimanded for something that's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because we've been shown that authority is an oppressor. Meanwhile, no, authority is part of business and life.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where now we're finding a dynamic where our people need to come to a place of understanding unity. Not every authority is an oppression. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. I don't know why I wrote that there, how it comes together, but anyway, that's what I meant. That's what I meant with that. And it's just conversations that I have with myself and have with friends. These are the things we've really got to get rid of, because even our black leaders are struggling with our black subordinates because of such things. When a guy gets reprimanded by Ungamla, it seems to be better than why? So when he got into that position, we were hoping that we were going to have it easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's those little things. Yeah. Anyway, let's leave that.
Right.
I don't think that's part of it.
No, I wanna do this last one, and then the last two is just to close off. So this one says, don't raise your kids to avoid someone, but raise them to become someone.
I mean, a lot of our upbringing was about avoidance. So we were raising to avoid kids becoming a certain way instead of intention. Like I said, Guti, my frustration is I need my kids to become a certain way. But there's a lot. It's a way we live life in general. We do certain careers because we're avoiding certain things, not because we desire certain things or a certain lifestyle, but we're avoiding being broke. We're avoiding this, and that causes a lot of unhappiness.
Yeah.
So we do the same thing with our kids.
So you're working from a place of fear.
We're avoiding seeing what happens. Exactly.
Yeah.
Teaching from fear. That's why I was saying reactive parenting, right? Also, circumstantial parenting, and I've got to step out of my current circumstance and the situation that I'm facing and say, you know what, no matter what I'm facing, these people have still got to become who they need to become,
Yeah.
and I've got to find out what that is. And a part of it is I think that's what's hard about it also, is the template of avoiding is easier than finding out from this kid who they are and who they need to be.
Yeah.
I'm in business. The greatest dream of any business person is that their kids take over their business. But if my son decides that, no, he's going to be a gamer or he's going to be an accountant, he wants to be employed, I've got to find peace with that.
Yeah.
So it that thing comes round to that. It comes round to not having a mindset of fear, basically parenting from fear. There's a lot of kids who are not allowed to do certain things because of that. I wanted to do horse riding when I was a kid, and my mother, the first thing she said, and look, that, like I said, the environment, right? My mother's like, and when Christopher Reeve broke his And then I wanted to go do gymnastics. I really liked it. And she's like, I went to go play karate, and then she's like, they hit me once in the face and I bled, and it's part of the sport. I mean, I come back home and they stopped me from going to karate. And
you have to, right? The thing is,
so
you have to take the knocks. I have the same thing too. Yeah. And I've seen like a few things where it's advised that, look, the kids are going to jump off stuff, they're going to do things, but that's life, right? You're trying to save them from being hurt, but you're actually hurting them.
Yeah.
So no, I
exactly.
I understand it completely. Thank you so much, bro.
Sure, bro.
I appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll be able to do this in person, man, in the next iteration, because there's a lot more to be discussed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Yeah. No problem, boss. Thank you so much for listening, streaming this episode. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and rate our content wherever you stream these episodes. I'll see you in the next one. Sharp. Proudly produced by 1730 Media.